As NFL training camp opens, position battles at quarterback take center stage. So we're exploring the dynamics of those competitions today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills, normally joined by Kyle Krabs of Locked On Dolphins, but he's out today traveling to Miami Dolphins training camp. But we are here for you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Well, folks, welcome in. By the end of today, every single NFL team will have reported for training camp, and football is here. And one of the biggest storylines for the entire NFL entering these training camps are the position battles, but specifically to me at the quarterback position, where we have some jobs that are available. And of course, most of those do include a first-round rookie. But when does that rookie get the opportunity? What is the situation like? I want to explore the dynamics of these quarterback battles and give you my general thoughts as to what I think should happen in each situation. Now, the NFL news cycle was pumping yesterday. We saw Christian Darrisaw with the Vikings sign a 4-year extension worth up to $113 million. The Jaguars and Tyson Campbell agreed to a 4-year, $76.5 million extension. We've got holdouts, CeeDee Lamb, Hassan Reddick. Those guys aren't showing up. Matthew Stafford and Amari Cooper did show up, and they had their contracts adjusted to prevent those holdouts. Michael Gallup retired. It's been quite the start to training camp, and so the news is going to be coming fast and furious, and of course, Kyle and I will have you covered here to explore the biggest storylines across the NFL. But today is about these quarterback battles. And I want to start with the one that feels like the most true, pure competition, and that's with the Las Vegas Raiders. Aidan O'Connell versus Gardner Minshew. I think this is a legit competition. And you look at Aidan O'Connell as a 2023 fourth-round pick. Got a chance to start 11 games as a rookie. In those 11 games, the Raiders went 5-6. But what was encouraging about that was how he improved throughout that experience. Vegas wound up winning 3 of their last 4 with O'Connell as the starting quarterback. And what's most impressive about that is it included wins against the rest of the division. Towards the end of the season, like I mentioned, winning 3 of the last 4, he collected wins over the Chiefs in a game that wasn't like everything's wrapped up. The Chiefs can roll over and rest for the playoffs. It was a meaningful game. The Chargers and the Broncos. And certainly that gives you some excitement about O'Connell moving forward, not to mention he had 8 touchdowns and 0 interceptions in his last 4 starts. You just saw him get better and better, more comfortable running the offense. Now, obviously, there's a ton of new dynamics in place, including a new offensive coordinator. But the unknowns about Aidan O'Connell make me interested. They make him attractive to me. The baseline ability that he showcased last season to keep it between the lines, but showed growth within that, makes him fascinating. Now, I think there's some dynamics in Vegas that are notable. You've got 2 new starters on your offensive line. You said goodbye to Jermaine Illumineur. You said goodbye to Greg Van Roten. who were very good veteran starters for you last year. And you're welcoming in Thayer Munford, probably the right tackle. Certainly Jackson Powers Johnson's the plan at left guard, but he starts camp on the PUP list. At least you have Cody Whitehair as a depth option. So you got a couple of new pieces on the offensive line. And the running back situation is something to be mindful of. Zamir White takes over for Josh Jacobs, and much like Aidan O'Connell, you saw very good production from Zamir White across those last 4 games for Vegas. Like very, very productive, but still kind of an unproven commodity in the NFL. He takes over for Josh Jacobs, and the RB2 is Alexander Madison. And if you've been listening to this podcast, you know that this is not a pro Alexander Madison podcast. So a transition on the offensive line, a transition at running back for a team that you know the identity here is going to be, hey, we want to pound the rock and be physical, play defense, right? At least until they have a proven quarterback that feels like it's going to be the formula in Vegas. And I think that's fine. And with that in mind, I think that points to Aidan O'Connell as a fairly attractive option, all things considered. But he is in competition with Gardner Minshew. And Gardner Minshew in so many ways is the opposite of Aidan O'Connell. 37-game starter who's kind of bounced around a little bit. Had Indy in a decent spot last season. Getting a chance to play after Anthony Richardson gets injured. And the Colts, quite honestly, were an inaccurate pass from Gardner Minshew in week 18 from hosting a playoff game. Instead, he can't hit the throw, and Houston wins the division, and Indy's at home. But Minshew was able to function and execute an offense that was pretty productive. But I think we've seen enough Gardner Minshew to know that he's high variance and he's frustrating. He's also exciting. Kyle likes to compare him to a modern-day Ryan Fitzpatrick. And I think you know how those stories end, right? There's going to be flashy moments. There's going to be big moments, but those are going to be marred by erratic play and inaccurate throws and boneheaded decisions. Does Minshew fit into the identity of this football team as a play defense, run the football, keep it between the lines, make a few plays? I have my concerns about that, but you've also paid this player. Not massive money, but he got a 2-year, $25 million deal. He's the highest paid veteran quarterback that is competing for a starting job. Any other quarterback that's paid more than Gardner Minshew is a for sure, no questions asked starter right now. So what's my take on all this, right? I kind of fleshed through the dynamics of both options, but this is where I'm at. To me, the Raiders should approach this battle as Aidan O'Connell's job to lose. I think they should give him every opportunity. They need a long-term direction at quarterback. Maybe that's Aidan O'Connell. I don't think it's Gardner Minshew. I think we know who Gardner Minshew is. So let's take this year, which isn't just a throw Aidan O'Connell into the Wolves situation. That's not this at all. It's a pretty decent supporting cast and a guy that started 11 games last season. This isn't just, hey, let's toss this guy in. Let's get through it. I think you're looking to build upon what was pretty successful, all things considered, with it being O'Connell as a rookie, with a team that fired its head coach in the middle of the year. It's a pretty good situation, all things considered, compared to that, and he functioned pretty well under those circumstances last year. I want to find out. I want to give O'Connell every opportunity to play and for us to learn about who he is and figure out if we can win and move forward with him, or if it's time to really push the gas pedal down and find a long-term answer at quarterback, because I don't think it's Minshew. I think Minshew can come in and be okay and have some fun moments, but he's going to leave you frustrated more than he's going to leave you excited. So let O'Connell play and see what you have. All right, we're talking Broncos. We're talking Patriots on the other side of it, so be sure to stick with me. Folks, the NFL season is here. So many high-stakes games across the league. So many games I want to get to and watch. Maybe you do as well. You got to download the Game Time app. Game Time is the fast and easy way to purchase tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, theater events near you. They specialize in last-minute ticket deals. They give you flash deals. They give you an all-in price and their best price guarantee. Plus, I love that they give you a seat view so you know exactly what to expect when you get to the venue. But my favorite thing is the all-in price. You can toggle to see all the prices all in, so you don't have any surprise fees coming at the end of the transaction. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, folks, we got more quarterback position battles to discuss. I want to next get into another team from the AFC West, and that, of course, is the Denver Broncos, where we have Bo Nix versus Jarrett Stidham. I am not including Zach Wilson. I think Zach Wilson's a perfectly fine quarterback for the Denver Broncos to have, and I think the room will be better for the experiences that Zach Wilson has had in the league, and I certainly don't think the Jets gave him his best opportunity to showcase himself, but I've also at the same time seen enough Zach Wilson to know that I'm just not interested. So be the QB3, that's fine. But when we're talking about this battle, it's Bo Nix versus Jarrett Stidham. So let's get into these dynamics. Of course, Bo Nix, your first round pick this year. And I love the fit. I remember this process during the winter of seeing Bo Nix mocked in the first round. And before I was able to really study Bo Nix's tape, I had a lot of questions about that. But then I studied the Bo Nix tape, and I really kind of like what I saw. And what I enjoyed was how he functioned within that offense, like high command of the offense. And I certainly recognize that, was it 30% of the throws are like at or behind the line of scrimmage, a lot of binary reads. But I thought at the same time, Bo Nix showed processing ability. He showed great second reaction instincts, and I thought was aggressive and took care of the football. Like, I really enjoyed his tape. And after studying it, I came to this conclusion that I think Denver should draft him. I think he'd be the right quarterback for them to kick the tires on and pair with Sean Payton and see what we can do. And that's exactly what happened. And Bo Nix, played in 61 games in college. You feel like there's a makeup here that inspires you to believe that, maybe he can start right away. And when I look at this Denver situation with Sean Payton, and certainly transitioning away from Russell Wilson, I think was such a great decision for them. And Russ is such a frustrating quarterback. We'll talk more about him in the next segment. But his aversion to just simply running the offense was tough to watch as a person who really doesn't have any skin in the game. I love talking about the NFL, but I'm not going to lose an ounce of sleep over the success or lack of success of the Denver Broncos. I'm interested in it. I care about it, but it's not something that really moves the needle for me. But it was difficult for me to watch Russell Wilson. And I'm sure that was even more difficult for Sean Payton, who's a good play caller, a good schemer, and he's got this quarterback that just simply wouldn't run the offense. It was incredibly annoying to watch. I mean, literally just, hey, I'm going to chuck up a YOLO ball down the field, or I'm going to hold the ball forever and find a check down to the running back and hope that they can create after the catch. I mean, it's not how you play the position. I think Bo Nix will come in and run the offense. And again, Sean Payton, that's a good head coach, play caller to be working with. Meanwhile, you're paying handsomely 4 of your 5 starters on the offensive line. You're paying Bowles. You're paying Quinn Miners now, a $20 million a year guard. You're paying Ben Powers. You're paying Mike McGlinchey at right tackle. I mean, you got to figure out this center thing, but you got a lot invested in this offensive line, and you have likable enough skill players in a Cortland Sutton and Marvin Mims in year 2, and you got Bo Nix's go-to guy in college and Troy Franklin in the building. Javonte Williams further removed from the injury at running back. I like the depth there with a guy like Samaje Perine. Adam Troutman knows the offense for sure, right? He's Sean Payton's best friend, basically. Greg Dulcich, hope the hamstring's right. So there's a likable enough supporting cast here for me to think, yeah, this is a decent situation for Bo Nix to step into, not to mention his own experience that he's had, whether it's at Auburn or Oregon and the time on task, right? He's done all these things. It's attractive to me. What's not attractive is Jarrett Stidham. I think he's a very uninspiring option. We saw him start 2 games last year for the Denver Broncos. And I guess technically he has a year in the system and that benefits him. And, if Bo Nix isn't ready to go, you can allow Jarrett Stidham to play a little bit, but there's just nothing interesting to me about Jarrett Stidham. So the way that I see this quarterback battle is one guy excites me, one guy is a total snooze, and the guy that excites me is a first-round rookie. The guy that doesn't is on his 3rd team since 2020. And Stidham couldn't stick with teams like the Patriots and Raiders who have needed answers at quarterback. Unless Bo Nix just clearly isn't ready and it will be detrimental to his future, you got to let him play. There's just no upside in Jarrett Stidham. And that infrastructure is good enough for me to feel comfortable with Bo Nix playing from the outset. The next one here is the New England Patriots, Jacoby Brissett versus Drake Maye. I'm pretty sure Jerod Mayo came out yesterday and said Jacoby Brissett's our most pro-ready quarterback. Well, no kidding, right? No kidding. Let's talk about this because obviously the future here is Drake Maye. But Jacoby Brissett is here, and I've grown very fond of Jacoby Brissett as a quarterback in the NFL, whether it was, he had a small opportunity with Washington last year, but we saw him play pretty extensively for Cleveland, seen him play extensively for Miami, the Colts, and I've grown very fond of him. He's tough, man. He's tough, and he makes plays, and the way he hangs in the pocket and stares down the barrel against pressure and takes hits and delivers throws and can create with his legs. Like, I like Jacoby Brissett. There's actually no doubt in my mind that he's one of the best 32 quarterbacks in the world. Am I saying that he's a top 20 or top 25 quarterback? No, I'm not saying any of that, but he's one of the best 32. And I think he's kind of perfect for this Patriots situation. You have a lot of questions about this offense and the supporting cast. When it comes to the offensive line, big questions at left tackle and left guard. Who's it going to be at left tackle? Is Chuks Okorafor going to be the answer? Is it Caden Wallace? Is Cole Strange going to be ready to go? What's his situation at left guard? If not, do we have to play a rookie in Layden Robinson? Plenty of questions there, not to mention wide receivers are young. I don't think they have a true go-to guy in the mix. And then everything's new on offense. New coordinator, new quarterback room. There's not a lot of stability here. And through that, I think Jacoby Brissett will be unfazed by all of it. Look at what this guy's career has been. Dealing with being the guy that has to replace Andrew Luck when he suddenly retires, like right before the season, stepping into that Cleveland situation, stepping into the Miami situation, what happened in Washington. He's going to be unfazed by all of this. And you're not going to damage him. You're not going to play Jacoby Brissett and it's going to ruin him. And so I think you got to roll with him. Now, Drake Maye, like I mentioned, he's obviously the future here. I don't think he's the best option in the present. I don't think that his time at UNC positions him well to be an early starter. Plus, the offensive supporting cast and everything around him is not quite where you want it to be. Now, it's only a matter of time, but I think the Patriots do need to be careful here. Use what you've learned with Mac Jones. And look, I've never been a Mac Jones guy. I think Drake Maye is a significantly better prospect. But you can't sit here and with a straight face tell me that the Patriots gave Mac Jones his best opportunity to be successful. Learn something here, folks. You have Jacoby Brissett. My take here is to roll with Brissett until you have confidence in both Maye and what's around him. The priority for the Patriots has to be long-term. Has to be long-term. You're very clearly the worst team in this division. Now, you'll play all the games. We'll see what happens, right? The NFL can be very unpredictable, but if you're being honest with yourself, what's your path to the playoffs? This isn't just a Bills fan talking down to the Patriots. I mean, they have the lowest projected win total in the NFL. It doesn't look good for them this year. But as you think to yourself, well, we have some likable characteristics of our defense. We've started to build this offense. We've identified our quarterback. The long term is what matters here. If the Patriots go out and win 5 games this year, nobody's going to blink an eye. It's okay. Don't ruin your next first-round quarterback investment along the way. So a matter of time, but I have zero urgency to play Drake Maye based on this current infrastructure, based on where Drake Maye is at, and based on the existence of Jacoby Brissett. And look, maybe you think about it like this. Hey, I think we could be a really good team on defense. Jacoby Brissett can be tough and make a few plays in the passing game. We can run the ball a little bit. That's our path to being competitive. I think your best path to do that is with Jacoby Brissett. All right, on the other side of it, folks, there's 3 other quarterback situations that aren't necessarily battles, but they feel unsettled, and there's some very interesting dynamics surrounding all of them. I'm talking Vikings, Commanders, and Steelers on the other side of it. Folks, be sure to stick with me. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fits only available to U.S. customers. All right, let's close this out with Vikings, Commanders, and Steelers. We'll talk Vikings first, where we have Sam Darnold versus J.J. McCarthy. And Kevin O'Connell, the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, has given us every indication that he's got an appetite to see Sam Darnold play a little bit. He said in a radio interview with Adam Shine, quote, "At the quarterback position, look, we're all excited about Sam. I had a lot of the same feelings that you did about Sam coming out. Really kept a close eye on his quarterback journey, and not all quarterback journeys are the same. Although the position tends to catch a lot of eyes and a lot of different coverage from a standpoint of what a guy is and isn't, wins and losses and all those things. But you're right, circumstances and environment that those guys are in play a lot to do with and play a lot into it. Sam's had a heck of a quarterback journey. I think he's learned a lot along the way, and I'm really excited about the time in his career in which we're getting him in our building. I feel strongly about his ability to continue even at this point in his career, continue his development and what he can become within playing quarterback in our offense with the type of players we have around him." So it sounds like Sam Darnold's going to be the guy here for at least a little bit, which is understandable to me. I find myself intrigued to see how he looks with Kevin O'Connell in this offense. And I think Kevin O'Connell really highlighted exactly what we're all thinking. Well, I mean, it's kind of a good supporting cast. I mean, good offensive line situation. Skill players are there. Aaron Jones is here at running back. There's so much to like about the makeup of that offense, not to mention what Kevin O'Connell has proven as a head coach in a short period of time. And, I know last year wasn't necessarily the season many were hoping after winning 13 games and all of that. But I thought Kevin O'Connell, even in a down year, earned a lot of my respect because of the dynamics that existed in Minnesota and how he was able to get production and still have his team in some good positions to win football games. And so, yeah, I'd like to see Sam Darnold with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson and a good offensive line and Aaron Jones. I think it could be decent. And so, yeah, I'm intrigued. And I think Sam Darnold having last season in San Francisco, where there's probably some level of scheme familiarity, that probably positions him pretty well to step into this opportunity. Now, obviously, the long-term play here is J.J. McCarthy, young player, 21 years old. I love the makeup. I love the pedigree. J.J. McCarthy is a quarterback that I find myself a little higher on than most people. But I'm also not in a rush here. We talked about this. This is a good situation in terms of offensive line and skill players. And I certainly understand the idea of giving Darnold an opportunity and taking that patient approach with McCarthy. One of my favorite things, and I've said this before, one of my favorite things about the Vikings is they seem very committed to a process, and they didn't panic. Like they won all those games that they probably shouldn't have in O'Connell's first season. And then they didn't just try to run it back and keep it together and see if they can build off it. They were honest about how they won and the sustainability of it, and then continued to transition their roster and put it where they want it to be. And so I've enjoyed that for Minnesota. I think it's good process. Hopefully the results for Vikings fans, it works out, but I think that they're onto the right idea here by giving Darnold a little bit of an opportunity. Of course, it's McCarthy. Like, he's the guy long-term, but given his youth, and look, the big conversation with McCarthy was his exposure to being in a pro system with Harbaugh in Michigan and how that positions him well for the NFL. And he's obviously got tools. But at the same time, J.J. McCarthy, not necessarily the truck of that Michigan team over the last few years. I think he certainly made some plays, and I like how he's been groomed for this moment. But it's not like they really rode him to the success that they had. Certainly a big part of it. But there's enough intrigue as to his makeup and why he's exciting, but also enough for me to say, well, let's let this play out. We're not in a rush here. I think that's the right play for Minnesota. We have the Commanders, Marcus Mariota versus Jayden Daniels. Daniels, the number 2 pick in the draft. Dan Quinn said that he's not ready to name a quarterback, but this also feels very much like a formality. It seems like they want the process to play out and for Jayden Daniels to declare himself as ready before the team says, this is our starting quarterback. Dan Quinn had a quote on Tuesday. It said, it's not a secret, but it is a journey and a process. So as we're going, when he's ready, referring to Daniels, we'll know. And when he's ready, he'll also know. So again, number 2 pick, it's his opportunity, right? He's going to be the guy at some point. But I think you have enough questions about Washington and the offensive line, which I think is a disappointing collection of talent. You have plenty. I have questions about Jayden Daniels. You know, how do you get him to function in a way where he runs the offense, but at the same time is mindful of his off-script ability, but is also mindful of, hey, this is a really tall, lean quarterback that we don't want to expose too much to injury. I think that's a needle that they're going to have to thread. And you've seen quarterbacks that like to run, and I'll highlight Anthony Richardson. I'll highlight Josh Allen. Both of those guys had early career injuries that made you a little bit nervous about, all right, is the beating that they're going to take just going to be too significant and they're always going to be injured? Well, in year 1 for both Josh Allen and Anthony Richardson, that was true. Both of those guys had injuries. Both those guys are 50 pounds more than Jayden Daniels. So I think we got to figure this out a little bit in Washington. But Marcus Mariota doesn't inspire me at all. It's been a while since he's put together a stretch of play that was appealing. So I think Mariota keeps the seat warm, make sure that Daniels earns it. But my appetite for playing Daniels over Mariota is really, really high. Again, I don't say that without having concerns for the offensive line and how Jayden Daniels has to mature into this role. But we're talking about Marcus Mariota. And surely you vetted out Jayden Daniels and you're comfortable with his mental makeup to feel like as the number 2 pick in the draft, you know, he's wired a certain way that he can take command. And I don't mean that to poke fun at the Washington Commanders and their slogans, but like, you had to have a certain level of comfort that under these circumstances, with that opportunity, you made him your guy. I know that you could say similar things for maybe Drake Maye, but the difference there is Jacoby Brissett exists. The difference in Washington is Marcus Mariota exists. I like the idea of making him earn it, but I'm also not trying to like take reps and opportunity away from Daniels because Marcus Mariota exists in this locker room. The last one I want to talk about is the Steelers with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. It's not a battle. There's zero indication that this job is open, right? It's every arrow is pointing at Russell Wilson being the unquestioned starter. But the point that I want to make is that it should be. I've got issues with both quarterbacks. But what's the appeal here? What's the appeal here for Russell Wilson? He's going to throw YOLO balls to George Pickens and then dump it down a little bit to these running backs. I don't know. There's just nothing interesting to me about Russell Wilson. Again, I think Justin Fields has plenty of questions. And I think maybe you ride it out a little bit with Russ Wilson, but my leash is short. It would not take much for me to get Justin Fields out there. Like, maybe you just find out, like, okay, maybe Russell Wilson just needed a change of scenery. Did he have 2 coaches in 2 seasons in Denver? I mean, it was rough. Maybe there's a stabilization that exists with Pittsburgh. We'll see, right? I think there's plenty of questions, but maybe you just find out for a few weeks. But again, I am going to have a short leash there, and I'd want to play Fields. I mean, Fields is 25 years old. He's an expiring contract. You don't have a ton invested in him, right, in terms of what it took to get him in the building. But I'd sure want to see what it looks like a little bit. I get it with Russ Wilson for a little bit, but I am far from like firmly committed to him if I'm the Steelers. But certainly feels like they're going to roll with Russ at least for a little bit. So there you have it, folks. Quarterback battles across the NFL taking center stage here as NFL training camp is open. Kyle and I will be back for you tomorrow, breaking down the biggest storylines across training camp. I certainly hope that you enjoyed this conversation today. I hope that you'll come back. I hope that you'll subscribe. Would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day, and we look forward to catching up with you again real soon.